잠깐 영상 시작에 앞서 성공비밀 시청자분들을 위한 자기계발 소통 채널을 개설하였습니다. 유튜브뿐만 아닌 여러 팟캐스트 플랫폼에서도 들으실 수 있으니 많은 관심과 사랑 부탁드립니다. 자, 그러면 오늘 영상 시작합니다.
The keynote to this lesson is the person who has learned to discipline himself cannot be disciplined by others. And stated conversely, the person who has not learned to discipline himself is sure to be disciplined by others. Repeat the written statement of your major purpose in life at least twice daily in the form of a prayer. Now, what do you suppose is the reason for repeating it daily? The object is to fix the idea upon the subconscious mind so indelibly that the subconscious mind goes to work immediately on what you want it to do. And repetition has a powerful way of keeping the subconscious mind going in the direction that you want it to go. Incidentally, if you don't feed the subconscious mind with a clear picture of what you want, it will wander off into undesirable fields and attract to you things you do not want. And next, engage in at least one act of going the extra mile each day. But every time you go the extra mile, you do something beneficial for yourself. And next, discipline yourself to write out a list of all the blessings you enjoy and express a prayer of gratitude for these blessings at least once daily. I should say that that's one of the most important things in connection with which you should discipline yourself. Because prayers of gratitude for the blessings that you already have are the ones that bring the quickest and the best result. In my early days, I used to go to prayer only when I was in trouble and I needed somebody to bail me out. And later on, I learned the best thing to do is to express prayers of gratitude for the blessings that I already had. And when I reached that stage of self-discipline, I want to tell you that my entire destiny began to change. I began to make new friends. My financial status began to change, and everything in my life was different. If you feel you must speak ill of another, do not speak it, but write it. Write it in the sand near the water's edge. And if you should be so unfortunate as to hate another person, discipline yourself to transmute this into the emotion of pity for that person, and see how much better you feel. I know in the nature of things, people sometimes express emotions of hate and hatred for other people. You don't have to love other people necessarily, but you certainly can express for them pity that they don't conduct themselves so that you can love them. You can do that. You'll be surprised what a change in your life it'll make when you get into that mental attitude. And next, discipline yourself to follow the habit of closing the door on all of your past failures and unpleasant experiences. The majority of people spend a large portion of their time in brooding over their past failures and mistakes and unpleasant circumstances. I've had my share of those, but if you ask me to stand up and tell what they are, I don't think I could, because I have closed the door on them so tightly. I not only have closed it, but I've nailed it tight so it can't be opened. I don't want to live in the past. I'm living in the present and the yet unborn future. It took discipline for me to learn to close the doors on my past. And next, discipline yourself to develop a success consciousness by seeing yourself already in possession of everything you need to make you a success. In other words, a success consciousness presupposes that you'll dress yourself in the way you want to, that you conduct yourself in the sort of company that you want, that you drive the sort of an automobile that you desire, that you live in the sort of home that you desire, and that you will outwardly and inwardly express a spirit of prosperity. And next, discipline yourself to select the person whom you would like most to emulate, and begin at once to think and to act as nearly like him as possible. And I formed my invisible counselor, made up of all of the great men whom I admired most. And I started holding evening councils with those men, as described in Think and Grow Rich. And I want to tell you that these meetings, imaginary as they were, became so real after a while that these characters whom I had chosen to become mastermind allies of me became so real that I could see them walk in and seat themselves at the table. And I carried this on until finally it became so realistic that I discontinued it because I got to the point where I didn't know whether I was seeing the actual people or not. But it did a wonderful thing. It enabled me to transfer to myself the qualities of these great men whom I most admired. And last, remember, the person who becomes master of himself cannot be mastered by others. And if you are overtaken by temporary defeat or any unpleasant experience, begin at once to search for that seed of an equivalent benefit, because it certainly is there. And while the wound of defeat is still fresh, it may be difficult for you to find that seed. For example, when my mother died at the age of 9, it would have been very difficult for me to have found the seed of an equivalent benefit in that circumstance. But the years which followed proved beyond any question of a doubt that that seed was there. Because the person who came to take my mother's place, my stepmother, came into my life, changed my whole destiny, and it made it possible for me to extend myself into space throughout the civilized world. So there was that seed of an equivalent advantage in the death of my mother. When I began to look around and found that no publisher wanted to have anything to do with publishing it, I was turned down time after time after time, and I would have had a very good alibi for quitting at that time. But I had learned the advantage of self-discipline. I knew that sometime, somewhere, somehow, some publisher would have enough imagination to recognize that any man who would put in 20 years of examining the causes of success in 500 successful men would come to the rescue of that author. I want to tell you, it took a lot of self-discipline, though, in the beginning, after I'd been turned down about 20 times. Build yourself up. Build yourself up to where you are in the position already that you want to be in. Give yourself a title if you want to. Call yourself a general, major, anything. Call yourself a success at the top of the heap in whatever it is you want to follow in life. Keep on telling that little white lie to yourself, and your subconscious mind eventually will pick it up and put you up there right where you want to be. When Andrew Carnegie gave me that famous formula, it seemed to me a ridiculous thing to do. He said, I want you to go before a mirror at night just before you go to bed, and in the morning just after you get up. Look yourself straight in the face and say, Andrew Carnegie, I'm not only going to equal your achievements in life, but I'm going to challenge you at the post and pass you at the grandstand. First time I said that, or the first 3 or 4 times I said that, I felt like a fool. But you know, eventually I commenced to believe it. And after I started to believe it, then I knew I was going to do it. And modestly may I state that I reached the place in life where my achievements far excel those of Andrew Carnegie's. I don't have as much money in the bank as he had. I don't need that much. I have all I need, and that's enough, isn't it? Those guides are not patented. There's no copyright on them. And there's nothing in the world to hinder any of my students from appropriating and using them. And I bid every one of you to do just that. And that's the end of this lesson, and I thank you.